Really? Let's do that one more time. Are you ready for great relationships?
Yes.
Are you ready to experience the prosperity of great relationships?
Yes.
Because that's what it is, you know. Every single thing, every single day is about a relationship. And we live in the abundance of relationships. So I'm going to talk to you about two parts today. The first part is what we need to do to prepare. And the second part is what we need to do when we get out there. So I've just returned from New York this week, and I was at the Cloisters. And I don't know if you've been there, but it's a wonderful museum. And they have a little chapel there that's from the 1400s. And the chairs are this wide. So you had to really pay attention or really be tiny. And I was sitting there quietly, and there are beautiful carvings on all the corners, and the ceiling is very high. And these words came to me over and over. And the words are, "Here in the presence of many, we are one." Here in the presence of many, we are one. And that's what relationship is recognizing that oneness. Now, you may have given this a little bit of thought, but I have the privilege every single day of going to an assisted living place to be with my friend who used to be my neighbor across the street, who has no one left in his life, and he's going to be 100 next month. And every evening I feed him his dinner. And as we've been walking through this journey, in just the last 6 months, he's needed this kind of help. And he talks to me about what's going on in his mind and in his heart, and what kinds of things he sees in his dreams, and what he calls his illusions, where he's not sure if it's real or not. And do you know what I've noticed? He has not spent 1 minute wondering about his visa bill. He has not spent 1 minute thinking about work or somewhere he's been on vacation. There's only one thing that's on his mind: relationships. Who are the people I love? Who are the people I care about? Who are the people I have loved? Where have I been in my past? And strangely enough, he has to keep saying to me, and always in a quiet voice, he says, "Can you tell me the name of my last wife? I've forgotten." But you know, it's about relationships. And if we don't understand that, we're really missing something remarkable. So living is all about relationships. Our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others. And where that emanates from is our relationship with God. And if we don't have that silence in our life, I invite you to put it in there. My husband and I wrote a book, it's out there, called Soul Solitude, taking time for our souls to catch up. And it's really important for us to do that every day, to have some soul solitude time and allow our souls to catch up. So as we're thinking about relationship from the point of view of the spiritual, what is the most wonderful thing is the realization that God is the individual being, right? That is us. And when I received that at the Cloisters, here in the presence of many, we are one, it was so clear, because God as our individual being, therefore means God as your individual being, the divine mind as one individual being, the one infinite life, the one infinite mind, all as one individual. And that means that each person you greeted this morning is a manifestation of God as a spiritual being. Now, is that how you start your morning? You look in the mirror and go, wow, there it is, God manifesting as me. Not really, right? So you might want to put that in there a little bit tomorrow morning. Say, wow, good morning, God, because it's not just, ooh, good God, it's morning. You might remember to say, good morning, God, when you see yourself in the mirror. And that understanding of that oneness is where we can spring forth. My favorite teacher is Joel Goldsmith. Many of you may be familiar with him. He and I have been walking along together for about 20 years now. And I just want to read you a little piece that Joel wrote. And he said, "In all relationships, do not look to each other as though that person could give or withhold. It is of the utmost importance that we realize at all times that we are not looking to a person, but to the Christ of the being and of our being. We must agree that everyone we meet in the course of the day is Christ. As we get up in the morning and greet members of our family, do not dwell on personalities by liking this one and disliking that one and finding fault with the other one, but rather secretly, inwardly, greet each one as the Christ. We expect people to be courteous, pleasant, or loving. Don't. Because they don't have it to give if they're not giving it. So love them anyway." It always comes down to that question, doesn't it, of who are you? Not who are they, but who are you? How do you behave? How do you respond? If I could invite you up to my offices in Escondido, you would see on my consulting room wall in 12-inch high gold letters the most important thing that I can teach anyone. And what it says on the wall is this: the truth is what you do. Your behavior is your belief. Now, if you just let that sink in for a minute, you recognize that everything that you do is telling everyone who you are. And if you get into a tight spot with someone else, and there's a difference between what they're saying and what they're doing, I want to invite you to always believe the behavior. Because behavior is belief. So think of it this way when you're thinking about God. We look at these beautiful light fixtures here today. And if we think about them and we expect that the light is coming from those bulbs, we think they're beautiful, but the problem is they're going to burn out. Because the light isn't coming from the bulbs, the light is coming from the electricity. And the same thing is true in life. We want to be remembering that the light is coming from God, not necessarily from people who are having a bad day. And so we can respond to that in a wonderful way because of who we are, not how they happen to be being or having or feeling in the moment. And not how we happen to be feeling in the moment either, because sometimes that's not the best thing in the morning. Even if we did greet ourselves well, we have issues that are going on in our lives, and yet we have the opportunity of choice. So let's think about the daily living part of all this. There was a woman standing looking at herself in the bedroom mirror, and her husband was there, and she was looking really deeply, and she said, "You know, my hair is getting a little thin. And I've got some wrinkles that are happening, and my skin's kind of sagging. And, I'm a little heavier than I used to be, and I don't really see any vitality, and I just don't know if I look good or not. What do you think, honey?" And he thought very wisely and said, "Oh, sweetheart, but you have almost perfect vision." So there's always some good to be found, right? In all things, there's some good to be found. But we know that we go out in the world, and sometimes we meet people who are explosive, and sometimes corrosive, and some people who are seemingly toxic, and some who are bullying, and some who are manipulating, and someone are competing. They're all out there. And our job is very simple. Our job is simply to give. And I don't mean that in a way like become a doormat, because Ernest Holmes would tell you, Eric Butterworth would tell you, Joel Goldsmith would tell you, there's no room for doormats in this world. You know, that's not our job to just lie there and take it. But it is our job to love, and it is our job to respond by who we are and not where they are. And that's one of the things that many of us have to make a shift around, because someone else's day is telling us how our day is going to be. Have you noticed that? And we let it happen over and over and over again. And then we wonder, well, that was a terrible day. No. There were a couple of moments where you had a choice in the day. Isn't it interesting how people like to say, oh, it was a terrible day, when really it was just maybe one not so great moment? But we color the entire day with it, and we color the relationships. Somebody's behaving badly on a particular day, a day that we don't care for their behavior. It may not be bad. And yet, we decide on the basis of that who they are. And then we hang on to that, and we don't let them escape from that. Have you ever done that? You can just nod inside. Yeah. Because it's so much part of our culture. And our culture is a little disordered when we come to relationships with twin partners. We kind of have a strange disordering that is occurring. And I see that in my practice, and here's how it goes. First of all, you have the dating haze, you know. That's when the chemicals are roaring and the evolutionary imperative is saying, mate, mate, mate. And so you're overlooking the things you don't like, and you're paying more attention to the things you do like. And the friends who are saying, run, you're going, no, no, no. Because we have all these wonderful chemicals flowing. Now, if we're smart, we're going to take some time. But if we're not, we rush on to what I call the wedding daze, D-A-Z-E. That's where you think about venues and dresses and flowers and honeymoons and magic. And we get all involved in that. We still don't know the person awfully well, but we're very, very involved in getting married to them, or committing to them, or moving in together, or whatever the rite of passage is that you have. And then comes the phase that should have come before the wedding days. It's called the learning phase, right? I remember a couple who came into my office maybe a year or two ago, and they were only been married 6 weeks. And they came in, and they both looked at me and said, this isn't working. And I said, well, what's not working? Well, she didn't change, and he's not any kinder. Oh, the magic of the ceremony, the magic of the dress and the flowers was supposed to happen. And that was because they didn't have the learning phase before the wedding days. But if that happens, it doesn't really matter. It matters what's in your heart. Are you willing to go through the learning phase? Because that means you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn about the other person. You're going to like some things. You're not going to like some things. When I wrote Kaizen for Couples, Smart Steps to Save, Sustain, and Strengthen Your Relationship, I was writing about the very most important steps we need to take, because so many of them we don't have. And you could come from the most wonderful family in the world and still not know how to have the relationship you're in. You can have some great learning, but you have to learn each other, and you have to learn yourself in that situation. So when this couple came in, and they were all, in a moment, it seemed they were crying. They had really hoped and expected that the magic of the wedding was going to create this blissful Cinderella experience. And they would just walk happily into the world forever, hand in hand. And there wasn't going to be a day at all when somebody lost their job, or somebody wasn't feeling well, or somebody just didn't like your mother. No, that was not going to happen. So we have to have this learning phase, because sometimes Prince Charming turns into Prince Harming. And sometimes your little princess angel's halo slips. And yet there you are, and you have to learn some ways to have a wonderful relationship. And you can. I'm here to tell you that you can have it if you are willing to do the work and you have learned what it takes to have it, no matter what age or stage you are. My husband and I have a blended family. We have 9 children and 20 grandchildren. And it is mind-blowingly wonderful to walk with this man. But I walked with another one. And I didn't know all that I know now. So I didn't do my part to make it mind-blowingly wonderful. So I have a few things to share with you that I certainly had to learn along the journey so that we can prevent having PCSD. And PCSD is post-commitment stress disorder. I want you to learn that it is possible at whatever stage to make a relationship better. So what is a great relationship? It's a relationship that's happening right now, not a relationship that is going to happen. It is the one you're in right now and who you are right now, and that's your opportunity for learning. It's a relationship without clocks or calendars because it happens right now in the moment. So can you live right now with you and the people in your life? Would you be willing to learn a few things that might make that more delightful, easier? Because they are all learnable. And it's not about which family we came from or all the things that have happened to us. Yes, they impact us. But right here and the right now, we can learn to have an open mind, kind eyes, and an open heart. We can learn how to present ourselves to our partners in a way that is in integrity with our values, our vision, our beliefs, and our purpose. And we do that by preparing ourselves well. It's not about them, it's about us. And many times we get into a relationship, we're attracted to somebody who is different than we are, which is great. Except they're allowed to do things we're not allowed to do, and we think, oh, that's swell. And so we're attracted to them, and then we get in a commitment situation with them, and we spend the rest of our time trying to make them more like us. And that's not very honoring, it's not very respectful, and it certainly won't bring you joy. But in Soul Solitude, we write about the 4 things that will, and that's acceptance, gratitude, trust, and surrender. And with those 4 things, you will change the face of your relationship with yourself and with all those people that you love and the new people who will come into your life. Because we have to remember we're not in charge of other people, we can't control them, and we can't change them. So our task is to pour, to give, to be continuously an outpouring of love. Now, that doesn't mean that you condone everything that's happening. Doesn't mean that you love every single thing that occurs. It means who are you deciding to be in the moment? And how does that show up? And that's the great joy of being alive. Because love isn't a transaction. It's not a scoreboard. It's not a tit-for-tat arrangement. It's not a barter system. It's something that just pours. And that's Joel Goldsmith's word for it. He just says simply pour. That's all you have to do is pour. It sounds so simple. Just one little thing. Not so easy sometimes, right? So when we're looking at our relationships, we have the opportunity to see new ways of being with ourselves and with each other. And that's what we're going to do in our program for the 6 weeks. We're going to look at new ways. We're going to look at ourselves in new ways. We're going to look at relationship skills in new ways, communication and conflict management skills in new ways, even how to deal with difficult people, which happens to be a specialty of mine, helping people understand if they're in relationship with what I call a perennially difficult person, That's not a person who is just now and again having a bad day or a bad moment, but there are people in the world who are perennially difficult, and they need special things from us, and we need to know about that. So we're going to look at a variety of those things. We're going to spend 6 weeks together on Tuesday evenings from 6:30 to 8:30, starting a week from Tuesday, which is, if my calendar is correct, the 16th of June. So after the service today, we're going to have a little get-together, and I'll share a few things with you. And also, again, on Tuesday, we'll have a free introduction so that you can come along. Because we want to be doing something that Eric Butterworth wrote about. And I just want to give you a little thing that he wrote, because he's a wonderful writer, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with him. And in Spiritual Economics, he said, "You can learn a helpful lesson from the lowly oyster. He's normally a placid fellow, but occasionally little grains of sand work their way inside his shell and begin irritating him. Naturally, he tries to get rid of them." Think about relationships now. "But when he discovers he can't do this, he settles down and produces one of the most priceless and beautiful things in the world. He turns the irritation into a pearl. So no matter what the difficulty, the loss, financial insecurity, adversity, if you're feeling negative, get busy pearling." So we're going to learn something about pearling. And in closing, I'd like to leave you with a little message from Eric Butterworth. He said, "Get the feeling of being a channel for the flow of good. Think give, and you will receive. Think of your work as giving. Think of every relationship as the opportunity to give. Give to your children, give to your neighbors, give to passers-by on the street. Think give. Give way. Let it happen. Life is for the whole person a giving process. We're not talking specifically about church giving or giving to charity. There are many channels which your giving may be funneled into. We're talking about attitudes of life, the basic awareness that life is a matter of developing or unfolding from within. It is knowing that life is not something to get, but something to express. It is the fulfilling awareness that your business is always the express business. No matter what your name may be in the world of business, you are in the business of expressing. So I hope you'll join me and learn a little more about yourself and others and the business of expressing, so we can all get pearling.